Hi Pre-Cal, happy Tuesday. I hope you had a really great long weekend. Your quizzes, if you took them on Friday, are graded and you should be able to go under classwork and see them. They were really well done. If you did not take it on Friday, you're going to go take it right after this video. So I want everybody to turn to page 12. Okay, we're going to do a bit of a review today and a bit of group work on your big graphs. All right, we're kind of getting ready to do these real world applications and then to finish up with a test over periodic functions next Tuesday. Right? So you may have started on this on Friday, pages 12 and 13. Okay, but this is what you need to finish for homework by the start of class tomorrow. And we're going to do the two hardest problems together. Okay, number 4 and number 7. All right. So it says here for each graph below, find the amplitude, period, phase shift, and vertical shift. All right. So let's jump down to number 4. This is the hardest one. Okay, and let's have a look at it here. Okay, so we have this function here, and you need to identify amplitude, period, phase shift, and vertical shift. All right, I would say actually the easiest thing to start with sometimes is the vertical shift. So if we look and kind of just put a midline on here. Okay, you can see that this vertical shift has been shifted from 0 down 3. Okay. Vertical shift is down 3. That once you've got that midline drawn, it's easy to see your amplitude. Okay, the amplitude is the distance from the midline up to the maximum or the midline down to the minimum. Either way, that distance is 2. Please remember that is a positive number. Okay, it's the absolute value. Okay, so it's positive 2 in this case. All right, the period. Okay, we can do from a starting to a starting point, and in fact that's going to be useful when we talk about phase shift here. Okay, but that, because it kind of falls in between, you know, something that's unmarked, that can be a bit tricky. So remember, you can always do something more convenient. So right there is pi, right there is 0. You can go from maximum to maximum as long as it's, you know, one cycle. So from this we can see that the period is pi. Okay, the phase shift, you must look for the starting point that is closest to 0. Okay, and for a sine graph, starting point is where we go mid up to max. So there's your starting point there. It is to the left, halfway between 0 and negative pi over 2, which would be left pi over 4. All right, so I want you to identify those. And tomorrow we're actually going to actually write the equations for these. Okay, but for today I just want you to identify those. All right, we're going to jump over to number 7. Okay, so on these, first of all, page 13, it says here, graph one cycle for each of the following. Please cross out one cycle. I never want to see just one cycle, please. I want to see end to end. Okay, so you could just write there end to end. Okay, because these are periodic functions, so I want to see them going left to right with arrows on both sides. Okay, we're going to do the hardest one together. Oops, we're going to do number 7. Okay, so you can see with number 7, we've got every possible thing going on there. We've got amplitude, we've got period change, we've got a phase shift, and we've got a vertical shift. All right, so you want to identify all of these before you start. And I think there's a certain order to do these that makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so I would, if I were you, I would start with the vertical shift. Oops, vertical shift, because that tells you the midline. Okay, so the vertical shift. So if we look down here, this has gone down to. Okay, and if I were you, I would, once you've discovered that, I would just actually go ahead and draw your midline in here down to. Because what I found in the quiz is that a lot of people correctly identified it up at the top, but they didn't actually graph it. They forgot to drop it down to. Okay, so go ahead and draw that midline. All right. The next thing I think it's quite helpful to do is find your amplitude. Okay, so if we look at this one, the amplitude is 3. And that is enough to kind of get you going on your 5 key points here. Okay, so we know that all of the midpoints now have gone down 2, so they're going to be at -2. And we actually know that the amplitude is 3, so the maximum is going to be 3 up from there, which would be 1. Okay, the minimum is going to be 3 down from there, which would be -5. So we actually already have the function values, which you can determine from the vertical shift and the amplitude. Okay. Next, all right, let's find the phase shift. Okay, so for the phase shift, remember we get that by setting the factor equal to 0. Okay, so we get 1/4 x plus pi equals 0. Okay, so 1/4 x equals negative pi, and x is negative pi divided by 1/4, which is negative 4 pi. Okay, that tells you your starting point. Okay, so we know now that the starting point is going to start at negative 4 pi. Okay, so it's actually going to start way over here. So we can actually go ahead and there's the starting point right there. Right, and then we need to know, last thing that's kind of helpful to know is the period, because that's going to tell us the ending point. Okay, so period, end point. Okay, so the period we're going to find by doing 2 pi divided by 1/4, which is 2 pi times 4, which is 8 pi. Okay, so we need to start at negative 4 pi, and we need to go a total of 8 pi. Okay, so from here, 8 pi is going to take us all the way over here to finish at positive 4 pi. Okay, then we just need to divide that into four even sections, so the middle is going to be 0. Okay, halfway between 0 and negative 4 pi is negative 2 pi. Halfway between 0 and 4 pi is 2 pi. All right, and now we've got everything we need. So this, okay, we get negative 2 pi and 1. Back to the midline here, right? And then we drop down to negative 5 here and back up to the midline. Okay, trace it out as best you can. Okay, and then just continue it off the graph. Okay, you should be able to kind of extrapolate, well, what would happen? Okay, it's going to look like that. All right, so that is the hardest one that I wanted you to do together. Okay, so this is what I need you to do today. Okay, 7th period. If you haven't taken or finished your quiz, you need to go now and do that. All right, everyone else, so all of 2nd period and a couple of you in 7th period, this is what I want you to do first. I want you to work with your group to finish your graph, okay? And by finishing your graph, okay, what I mean is you need to have your wavy line drawn. I think all of you have that. You need to have a title on it, axis labels, and 4 ordered pairs labeled. I think most of you should have that done. This is what I want you to really focus on today. Answer all the questions that are on the paper that you were given. So your original paper here, okay, this is one of them. Remember, had all these questions about what's the minimum water depth, what's the maximum, what's the average, what's the difference, time from one tide, all that. I think a lot of you have answered all of those before, but I want you to make sure they're all answered, okay, because that is going to help you to do what I want you to do here. Record on your paper your values for amplitude, vertical shift, period, and phase shift. Okay, so you're kind of doing now what we're doing on page 12 there, only with messy numbers. Okay, and that's going to help later in the week to actually write your function. Okay, your homework. Okay, so what you're doing now is working with your group, getting some work done on your graph. Your homework is to finish all questions on page 12 and 13. Okay, it's not that many, 3 on the one page, 2 on the other. On that first page should be real quick. Okay, get that done and upload a clear photo before the start of class on Wednesday. So you've got plenty of work to do. Please get to it. Tomorrow we're going to talk about writing equations and also talk about whatever happened to cosine. Okay, all we've been talking about is sine. We do need to talk about cosine, but you've already done most of the hard work and it'll be easy to do cosine graphs. All right.